Broadcasting live from Hyde Park. We are Boston's new home for classic R&B and hip-hop. Urban Heat 98.1 FM and 1410 AM.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host, guests, and callers and are not necessarily those of WZBR, its management, affiliates, and advertisers. WZBR and the Urban Heat holds no responsibility for the validity and or accuracy of information on this show.
I'm Dr. Carrie Ann, and I understand the importance of Black mental health. That's why I decided to start my own show on the Urban Heat, Black Mental Health Matters. Join me on Sundays at 1 p.m., where we will discuss interesting topics and meet experts in Black mental health. Let's talk about the mental health issues facing our community. Listen online at heat981fm.com or download the app 98.1 FM, the Urban Heat. See you then. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Black Mental Health Matters. I'm Dr. Carrie Ann Williams. I'm a psychiatrist practicing here in Massachusetts, and this is a show that's about everything related to mental wellness in the Black community. So if you want to call in throughout the show today, give us a call at 617-238-7111. We're also streaming live on Facebook, and that's on the Facebook page, heat981fm.com. So welcome to the show, and today I have a guest with me. Her name is Avalaura Gaither. Avalaura is an internationally celebrated celebrity life coach and an intuitive consultant with a background in social work, mental health, and counseling. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in social work from Howard University. And if that wasn't enough, she's also trained as a Reiki master and teacher, a certified life coach and spiritual counselor, hypnotherapist, holistic aromatherapist, and yoga and meditation instructor. Avalaura is a speaker of she's been a speaker for over 15 years, and she's a creator of two soul-stirring podcasts. One is called Avalaura Heal My Life. The other one is Black Women Leave America, which you can listen to on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, and more. Avalaura has been featured for her work on The Real Housewives of Potomac, Afro-American newspaper, Ruby Magazine, The Huffington Post, Reader's Digest, and The Root. So you've been pretty busy. Welcome to the show, Avalaura.
Thank you for having me, Carrie. Yes, I stay busy. As you know, in this field, there's plenty of work to be done.
Plenty of work always. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background. What led you to do the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. You know, it's something I believe that in the healing or helping profession, it really is a calling, right? Like there's something within you that feels like you really want to help people, and not just say it, but you actually want to, be a part of the change in the world. And for me, I'm the oldest of three children, originally from Connecticut. And, some might call me bossy. I just thought I was really good at giving advice. And people listen to me, right? I think when you're the oldest child, you're naturally a leader. You're kind of thrust into that position, and I was really good at it. And I saw that people actually took my advice and benefited from it. And so when it came time to figuring out, when you turn 18 and you're going to college and you're trying to figure out where to go and what you're going to major in, mom's like, so what are you going to do? And I was like, well, psychology, of course. I mean, that was the dream, that I just, I wanted to be a counselor and I wanted to just advise people for a living. And so, for the most part, that's kind of what happened. There were definitely some twists and turns in there, and I ended up taking the holistic route, which at that point in time, of course, didn't know about. It's certainly not talked about in the Black community, didn't really know anything about. But that really came about because when I ended up in the social work field after I got my master's degree and feeling, very proud of myself, like I'm here, I've arrived, all the work that I've done, I've made it. And I got into the field and I was just like, oh my God, no, this is not what I signed up for. Because I really just felt like the social work field, but really the mental health field at large, really wasn't set up to help people heal, but really I was just helping people to maintain our dysfunction. And I wanted to make a difference. I was really pie in the sky, optimist, I want to heal the world. I want to change everything. And, I was a program director at an outpatient mental health clinic, and we were essentially just, billing Medicaid and, getting kids medication. And it was just like, what impact are we actually making? How are we actually making a difference? And so I went through my own sort of downward spiral, if you will. And just feeling very hopeless and feeling very depressed and feeling like I've worked so hard to get here and this is not what I wanted. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I thought I would be doing with my life. And that really continued until I just decided, myself. Now here I am, a social worker. I'm over here helping all these people, and I didn't even know who to go to for help. And I finally just confided in one of my friends how I was feeling, and she said, "You know what? We're having this women's retreat. Why don't you come along with us and just take a time off, And at that time, I realized now, hindsight 2020 and all that I talk about, I was burnt out. Right. And I probably needed a change, but I didn't know that. Like nobody was talking about burnout. Nobody was talking about self-care, all these things. So I didn't even know what was going on with me. I just knew that I was feeling really hopeless. I knew that I was feeling powerless. I didn't want to go to work anymore. I was gaining weight. I was feeling depressed.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going on this women's retreat. Best thing I ever did, where it kind of just got me back to myself. Doing the soulful self-care that I talk about, doing the yoga, the meditation, being out in nature, just spending time with like-minded women. And it was during that time I literally just had like an emotional breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
I just found myself on my hands and knees crying out to God, like, I can't live like this. This is not what I signed up for. I can't do this. Like, you got to get me out of here. And I felt good, I released, I let go,
Yeah.
cleansing moments. And then I realized, like, oh shoot, I gotta go back to work on Monday.
Back to the grind.
Back to the grind, back to the rat race, as people call it. And I did. I went back. I mean, what else was I gonna do? And I got back to work and normal day. And then my boss calls me into his office and he says, Avalaura, it's been great having you, but I gotta let you go. And I said, wait, what? Hold on now. What's going on? Like, and he was just like, yeah, it's been great. Here's severance pay. And like that was it. And I was, in shock, obviously. And I am the classic achiever, classic overachiever, perfectionist. And it was just like, how can you fire me? Like nobody, I don't get fired from stuff. Like, where does that happen? And so my ego was really in an uproar. Like, I can't believe this is happening to me. What am I going to do? I can't believe he fired me. All this hard work that I've done and trying to help build this business and yada, 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 and all the stuff that ego does. Um, but then I just had a moment like where my spirit just kicked in and said, well, Avalaura, what are you complaining about? This is what you prayed for. Like, so what are you gonna do? Like you prayed for this, you manifested this. So, why are you complaining? And that really hit me. And so that kind of just became my mission. Like, what am I gonna do? Yeah, like, okay, now I'm free, right? I got my freedom papers. So now I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do now. And that's really when my real journey began. Like I thought all that was the journey, but my real journey really began at that moment.
Oh, wow. So then did you in that moment start to, kind of make that vision for what you wanted your work to look like?
I think the whole time that I was feeling very powerless and depressed, I started in my brain kind of thinking about what would be better? Like, what would I do differently? Right? Like, what would I want to do? And I had already kind of started immersing myself and just in different things that I was interested in. Like, I had learned yoga back when I was at Howard in undergrad. And so I started trying to immerse myself because I needed something to like anchor, myself and anybody who's been through, and I wasn't like clinically depressed or anything, but anybody who's been through a bout of depression or feeling down or just not feeling like themselves or going through some sort of transition, like you feel like you need something to kind of ground you. And so I was searching for those things because I really didn't know what was happening with me. I really didn't know what to do, but I knew that I wasn't happy. And so what happened is after I got fired, I ended up doing what I call my 6-month healing sabbatical. where I literally just, did my healing work. Who am I? Why am I here? What is it that I've been called to do? What is it that I can do that nobody else can do? Why is this happening to me? Why did God put me here? Like, what can I learn from this? What can I do now? And that's when I got life coaching. That's when I did counseling. That's when I learned Reiki and became a Reiki master teacher and immersed myself in all the healing arts, hypnotherapy, aromatherapy, like anything I could get my hands on. That's really what I was doing. And at the end of that 6 months, I opened up Avalaura's Healing Center. And that was in November of 2005. So we're talking over 15 years ago now.
Wow. Wow. So you've been running Avalaura's Healing Center for over 15 years, and you're located in Maryland?
I'm in Maryland, DC area, yeah, and really worldwide. So it's been really beautiful to have clients internationally everywhere. I mean, Africa and the UK and Canada. So it's been pretty awesome.
So then, during the pandemic, did that kind of open up a little bit more, even kind of through the use of kind of tele sessions? Did you find that there was even a greater reach, or did you already have that reach even prior to the pandemic?
Yeah, I actually already had that reach. I mean, I think that's one of the beautiful things about coaching, is that you don't have those restrictions and you can work with people anywhere. So I already had that reach. I think that more people were even more open to it. But I already had international clients. But one of the things that certainly did help, one was speaking. So now I ended up having more speaking opportunities because everything was virtual. So now you don't have to worry about flying and transportation and kind of like, all of these things. So I'm speaking in New York, I'm speaking to places in, California and, all over. So that was pretty cool. And then also I decided to start to virtually teach my Reiki trainings, which was a game changer because before then I had only done them live here in Maryland. But I started doing them virtually due to the pandemic. And that was probably one of the best decisions I made.
Okay. Wow. So then it's again, so that kind of reaches more people, and
Yes.
people are probably very interested to kind of engage with that.
Absolutely. I mean, I had people who were like, I always wanted to study with you, but, transportation, I really didn't want to, have to come to Maryland and all of that. And so it was, I mean, I was just like, why didn't I do this sooner? Like, what was I thinking? But, you have to kind of think quick and think fast. And I had a certain amount of Reiki trainings scheduled. And when the pandemic hit, I had to cancel them. And I said, okay, I got to do something. And it was just so cool to see, like, wow, like, I mean, there is a such thing as distance healing. So of course I can teach it via a distance. And so I remember my first class, one of my students was in Nigeria, and I was like, she never would have been able to attend if it had just been live.
Oh, that's so cool. That really is cool to be able to know that you can reach people, across the world. That's amazing. So now you do one of the things that you're known for is the coaching, the life coaching.
Mhm.
Tell us, our listening audience, a little bit more about who a life coach is, who's a good candidate for meeting with a life coach, and just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, there's always sort of this thing in the sort of the mental health world of, what's the difference between a life coach and a counselor, and why would somebody go see a life coach versus a counselor or vice versa? And, for me, so it's really interesting. So one of the things obviously is I don't diagnose clients, even though I have a mental health background, I don't diagnose. And so I tend to work with clients who are functioning, right? Although I will say there are some clients that I have who are on meds who want to get off of meds, and they're interested in maybe something like a Reiki or something like that to kind of complement what they're doing. But in coaching, really, I'm working with somebody who is functioning, but they're not functioning as well as they would like to. Right. And I think there's such a space for that because you don't have to be like down and out. Right. But that doesn't mean that you're happy in your life. And that doesn't mean that there's changes that you don't want to make or things that you need to do to get to the next level, whatever that is for you. And so that's really where coaching comes into play. And I still work in the same areas that a lot of counselors. I help my clients in relationships, I help them with their careers. I also help with building businesses. And so all of those areas during, life transitions, healing after divorce or, a breakup or different things like that. And so similar areas, but the difference is they're looking for something that's a little bit more holistic. In that, so when I'm coaching a client, like they get work, my clients get homework. Um, so there's no sitting and, I'm just listening and they're talking, they get work. And so they have assignments in between sessions. We do a lot of different tools like meditation, and there's a lot of corrective tools. I call it, that I give them. And that's what really helps to spark the change. And so it's a very different relationship, and they have access to me in between sessions. And so if there's something going on in their life and they need to email me or something, like, they can contact me. And so I tend to work with fewer clients, but more intensely during the time that we're working together. And my clients will work with me for a minimum of 3 months. So they know they're coming to me, we're working for 3 months. These are the things that we're going to work on. And then I kind of take them through that process to reach whatever their particular goal is.
Oh, okay. So I like that you mentioned that you give them some work to do in between, because I think what that does is it engages the person in their own treatment. I'm sure you've probably experienced in your work in counseling that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people come to you and they say, well, here's a problem. Can you help? Can you just fix it for us?
Yep.
And there's kind of the sense of, actually, in order for this to work, you need to actually be engaged in the healing process in some way, shape, or form. So whether that is the embodiment of it, you're actually doing something that kind of leads to healing in your body, or you're
Mhm.
doing something that is just actively a part of the treatment itself. So I like that you do engage people, and it seems like it's an advantage then that even though you have the title of life coach, you have the background
Yeah.
of a counselor, so you know how to diagnose, but
Yeah.
that's just not the role that you take for the folks that you see as a life coach. That is, it makes me kind of want to delve a little bit into the philosophy of what
Mhm.
it means to be well, right?
Mhm.
Um, because it seems that that's part of your story, is this kind of idea of what does it mean to be well. And you kind of, it seems as though you entered into this with I guess maybe that the idealism of youth, of kind of
Yes.
like, here's what I'm going to do to change the world, and then
Yep.
you realize the system doesn't really support that. And then kind of trying to find a hybrid of realism, idealism, holistic care, all of those things.
Yep.
So what do you think about the way that the system is right now, based on your experience with it, based on your clients' experience with it? Just how accessible is holistic care, and how does our mental health system support that, if that makes sense?
Yeah. You know, it's kind of a hot mess. Like, I don't even know another way to say it. There's so many problems. And a lot of what I see is it's a challenging space to be in, because I love holistic wellness. I absolutely love holistic wellness. It has worked for me. It has worked for my clients. A lot of the people who come to me are coming to me because they have tried so hard to be well. And they've tried so many different things, and they've been to so many different counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists. They've been all over the map, and they're still searching. They still haven't gotten what they needed. And they're just the ones who haven't given up. And we don't know the countless people who have tried and failed and just said, you know what, I give up, nobody can help me. And so you have to be like so determined um to really get the help that you need. I hear people say all the time, like, finding a good counselor is like finding a good pair of shoes. It's like, you got to try on several pair, before that might happen. And that's the reality. And like, then you have to, of course, deal with, people take insurance. I decided, from the beginning, I never wanted to take insurance. I just did not want to be limited in that way. I wanted to work with people who were fully invested in their wellness, because I knew that if they were paying out of pocket, they were going to be dedicated, because you're not going to pay me all this money and not do the work.
Yeah.
So I made that decision from the beginning. But of course, the traditional system is insurance. And so most people who count on insurance, there's so many limitations. They find that they can't necessarily get the help that they need. They're looking for therapists, and particularly if they're looking for a Black therapist, and they feel like, I've been to several white therapists and they couldn't understand me, and I'm like, why the heck am I here? And there's so many different issues in trying to find the right person if
Yeah.
you can, and then also trying to afford that person if you find them.
Yeah.
Because I will be the first to tell you, I am not affordable. I'm not, I wasn't really trying to be affordable. My client is one who says, you know what, I have the money, I have these problems, I want to get the best care that I can get, so I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna forget the system over here and go to her.
Yeah.
But not everybody can do that. So there's a lot of people that I can't work with because they can't afford me. That's the reality. And so it's a tough place to be. You have, as a practitioner, and as a person needing help, there's definitely some decisions that you have to make in terms of the lane that you want to go in. And so there's a lot of problems with it. Holistic wellness is not supported. You're not going to get a Reiki treatment paid for. That's going to be out of pocket. Hypnosis is not covered. All these things are not covered. So you're going to have to, generally speaking, pay out of pocket if you really want to get the treatment that you want to get. If you don't want to be limited, you're going to have to do that.
Yeah, and it seems as though some of it comes down to, for some people, that is, it comes down to prioritizing.
Yeah.
What's important. What are you willing to pay for? When you make a budget, there's some things we're willing to spend more money on. We're willing to have a bigger car note for the car we want to get or whatever. So some of it comes down to prioritization, and sometimes you really just flat out can't afford to pay out of pocket for certain things. So it really is. People are in different situations, and
Yeah.
I asked the question because I think, as someone that has both, I have kind of two jobs. I have one where I have a private practice where I don't take insurance, and then I also have a job where I see kids at a therapeutic school, and it's all state insurance for the most part. And so I kind of see two populations,
Mhm.
and both need help, but one has more financial resources. And it's just interesting to kind of see the disparities, really, and then what the people look like when they
Yeah.
can pay out of pocket sometimes. Um, so I think I think one of the things that I'd love to see is a greater access to holistic care for people of multiple demographics. And so one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show too is just for you to kind of even just represent, this is what holistic care looks like. I think it's really important, and I wanted to also just kind of delve a little bit into, for you, what does it mean to be well? When you think about the work that you do, when clients come to you and the kind of questions they ask you, to you, when do you feel like people are doing okay? What does it mean to be well?
Yeah. And obviously, that's going to look a little different for everybody, based on, for coaching, I don't necessarily call it treatment plans, but, mental health,
Yeah.
in their treatment plan. But one of the things that, when I first start to work with an individual, is really looking at, what are your goals? Like, what is it that you really want? And not like what you say that you want, but like at your core, on a soul level, like, what is it that you really want? And that's how I start to look at their wellness in terms of what it is that they really truly want. And it's interesting how a lot of times people will come to me and say, well, I want more peace, or I want to be happy, right? Or I just want to stop attracting narcissistic men, right? Like, whatever it is. But then when we start getting into the work, they realize there's really something else that's driving them that they didn't necessarily know what that was. And so I look at wellness obviously from a holistic standpoint, mind, body, spirit, and soul. But I'm really interested in somebody, a lot of times I'll call my work soul work, like really at a soul level, like what is happening with you? Why are you having these experiences? What are the lessons? Where is it that you're really wanting to be in life? And let's figure out a way to help you to get everything that you wanted of life, whatever that looks like to you. Like, let's figure out what is your soul success, right? Because everybody is so different. Like for me, I might be happy backpacking, traveling the world for the rest of my life, and I'm good. Where somebody else like really wants to settle down and have a family and or have a business or live out in the countryside somewhere and just write for a living. Like everybody's so incredibly different. And so a part of my work that I think is so beautiful is that I get to honor those differences, and I really get to look at a person for who they truly are and what it is they really want at a soul level and help them to reach that. And that to me is wellness, just being able to live life on your terms, whatever that is for you.
Oh, so in that way, people get to define it for themselves. What
Yes.
does it mean to them to be well? Not necessarily for you as a practitioner to define what that looks like for them, which I think is the ideal. I like that. I like that answer. And for those of you that are just listening or just joining, this is Black Mental Health Matters. I'm Dr. Carrie Ann Williams. I'm a psychiatrist here in Massachusetts. And my guest today is Avalaura, and she has a holistic practice called Avalaura's Healing Center. It's based in Maryland. And today we're just talking about her background and her business, and then just other kinds of thoughts and discussion. If you want to call in, the phone number here is 617-238-7111. That's 617-238-7111. And we're also streaming live on Facebook. So if you want to drop a comment on Facebook, or if you just want to see us on Facebook, the page is heat981fm.com. So, Deva Laura, one of your other areas of specialization is trauma. And it's one of my areas of specialization as well. So I always like talking to other folks who specialize in trauma. But one of the things that I wanted to ask was, as a holistic provider, what
Mhm.
is your thought about how trauma affects the body?
Yeah. That's huge. And so, because I am a Reiki master teacher and I do energy healing, and and I really sort of claim the title as healer. Like we all have different gifts, and that is definitely one of my gifts. And so it's really interesting from this point, helping someone work through trauma, because you can literally, when I'm doing Reiki or a chakra balancing session or core cutting, these are all different energy healing modalities. I can literally feel it in somebody's body. And so it's not just talking about it, but I can feel, the tightness or the heat or the depth, in their stomach or in their heart, or what's going on in their head, or, different parts of their body. And so it's really fascinating to be able to have that exchange of, we can talk about it over here, and there's some assignments and some work that I can do to help you to release that, but then over here we can do Reiki, and I can literally feel that energy in your body and work to try to get it up and out. And a lot of times that's what I'm doing. I'm literally trying to clear that negative energy out of the body so that it can bring itself back into harmony. But it's so interesting without even somebody telling you. Like there's just things that you can feel and connect with. And it's sort of the blessing and the curse of being a healer. I have a lot of clients who are empaths, and I have a lot of Reiki students who are empaths. And that's one of the blessing and the curses. Like when you can really feel what somebody else is going through, it's great because you can connect with them and you can better help them because you feel it. But at the same time, it's like you feel it, right? And you don't want
Wow.
to have the experience yourself. But it's really fascinating, being able to do that and seeing what people look like after a session and how they're like glowing and smiling, and they have this lightness, right? And some will say they feel like they're just like walking on a cloud, and they hadn't felt that good in years, or they hadn't slept that good in years, because this energy has literally been released from their body.
Wow. And we know that trauma is held in the body,
Yes.
absolutely held in the body. And it's how do you describe something that's felt so deeply, right?
Exactly.
And a lot of traditional therapies, which are fine, no, traditional therapies are fine, but a lot of them do rely on talking, and it's sometimes hard to talk about something that your body's holding on to. Particularly, sometimes people experience things and they don't even remember specifically what happened because their brain, as a protective measure, kind of blocks some of the actual memory out, but your body remembers. Um,
Exactly. Yeah, they don't necessarily remember it. Or like you said, there's no words to really fully articulate it.
Mhm.
And so sometimes, truthfully, like it could come out in sound or, in movement or in something because you can't even speak it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love holistic modalities because it offers you a different way. I love when I have clients who say, you know what, I have a psychologist over here, or I'm going to an acupuncturist or, a chiropractor, whatever, and I'm using this as a part of my treatment as well. And so understanding that you can blend the traditional with the non-traditional and it all works so well in harmony together.
Yeah. So it's not either or, it can be an addition. It can
Absolutely.
be an addition. So you can take a medication and, do this and the other. And I remember you saying earlier that you do have clients that they have other providers. They may have a
Mhm.
psychiatrist, they may have a psychologist, but then in addition, they may also be engaging in some of the other kind of healing kind of strategies that you offer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
I
and,
have clients, especially like my millennial clients now. They're like, look, Avalaura, I am not trying to suffer like my parents did. So just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like I'm ready for it, Miss Avalaura. Just tell me what to do. And they are just like whatever it is, they're willing to do it. They're really dedicated to it. And I think that's a beautiful thing when you are so invested in your healing because you understand like it really is the most important thing. I mean, if you are not healthy and whole and functioning in the way that you want to function in, like what is the point of life? Like why are you here? And so even though I know it for a lot of people it's like, oh my god, I got to invest in this, but truthfully when you invest in yourself everything else starts to fall into place. And so yeah, I think that is the best way to do it, if you can have a very holistic approach and blend things together and see what works and what doesn't work and know that there are just so many other options out there for you. You don't just have to embrace traditional mental health. There are so many other things that you can do.
Oh, oh, you had said something earlier that had kind of got my interest, and is that you do hypnotherapy.
Hmm.
And I guess I wondered if you could comment on what are some of the myths about what hypnotherapy is, and what are some of the benefits of hypnotherapy? Like who kind of benefits from that?
Yeah, so I used to do a lot more hypnotherapy when I first opened so many years ago. My business has taken a lot of shifts over the years, kind of as I've seen the trends and what's happening, what's working and what's not working. And so I don't do it as much. Like I used to do it like as a standalone service, and I don't do it as much. I really blend it with the coaching and the Reiki just because I've found that mix to be more beneficial. But I mean, I definitely think people look at it as like some kind of like mystical thing, you know. And there's a lot of people who think of like past life regressions or things like that, but not understanding that so much of what we encounter and what we go through, and even in life coaching, I talk about this with my clients. So much of it is your mindset. Is what's going on in your mind consciously and unconsciously. And so hypnotherapy is really just let's get into that unconscious because that's where a lot of the change will happen. And when we're sitting here talking, we're really only dealing with the conscious. And so there's different tools that I got to take you through to get to the unconscious so we can see what's going on behind the scenes that's really ruling your behavior in your life. And so hypnotherapy is just another way of getting into the unconscious and making change there. And so it's really not so mystical. It's really just tapping deeper into right into your mind and what's going on there because that is where we make the changes.
And because I think traditionally when a lot of us think of hypnosis, just in kind of, I guess, popular culture, we think of entertainment.
Yeah,
Someone that's
that too.
making you do things for the entertainment of others. But it is, of course, a legitimate therapeutic field. And I remember learning about it when I was in training, but it was not offered as part of our core training. It's definitely a kind of a separate kind of training to get. So I think it's really interesting that it's one of your kind of skill sets. The other thing that kind of got my attention was the fact that you're a holistic aromatherapist,
Yeah.
and I've been thinking a lot more about aromatherapy recently. In psychiatry, we tend to just think pretty narrowly in terms of like, okay, lavender helps us sleep in relaxation, and peppermint is kind of energizing, and I think there was one other one that we sometimes think about as well, like maybe
I was about to say
lemongrass or
probably
lemon
a
balm.
citrus. Yeah.
Yeah, like something else that's kind of like a citrus scent. And then I think in general medicine, eucalyptus is probably kind of like that anti-nausea kind of situation. So there's like very kind of limited, concrete things. Tell us a little bit about what it what it means, or what do you do as a kind of a holistic aromatherapist, and how does that help people?
Yeah, so for me, it's like a blend of everything, right? Like I just took all of my interests and things that I felt were important and I just started blending them all together. And so what that looks like is when you come, if you come see me in person, you're going to smell some type of something. Right, in the diffuser as you walk in, and so it's like the first thing. So all of like your senses are engaged. So your smell, your sight, your touch, and it's like wow. And one of the things that I teach my Reiki students is like, look, half the battle is presentation, is the energy in the space that you create, for your clients. And so if when you come to me, the energy is set and is really very intentional, that's half the healing right there. All I got to do is show up. And so you're already receiving these cues and you don't even necessarily realize it. And so if you just think about any space that you go into, you're like, wow, this feels good. I love it. Versus a space you go into, you like, oh, this don't feel good. Like, why am I here? I need to leave. Right. And so it's very engaging in that way. And scent is a very powerful tool. We talk about like back to the caveman days, right? Like where, survival was all about being, we're in the elements and we had to use, our sight, our touch, our smell, and all of these things to live, to survive. How do I know what to eat and not what to eat, right? All of these things. And so scent is a very sort of pre-mortal, powerful thing that can take you back to childhood. Different scents can, bring about different memories,
Oh
or
yeah.
bring different feelings, create different feelings, emotions. So we're talking about trauma. You can have a certain scent and it really could be anything related to maybe what happened to you, and it triggers the trauma because that was the scent that was happening, when you experienced that trauma.
Yeah.
And so there's so many different ways that it can be used. And so for me, it's about providing the energy of that space and that environment and making it feel good so that you feel good. And in that space, you already start to feel healed. You already start to feel like, wow, this is a possibility for me. Like, this is what it could be like. Like, I could always feel like this.
Yeah. No, that's amazing, because I think sometimes we forget about the fact that the sense of smell, that kind of olfactory system, is a direct connection to the brain. It's a direct connection to the emotional part of the brain. And so it's quite powerful. I remember actually when I was studying child psychiatry in my fellowship, that they talked about kind of sensory things working with kids,
Hmm.
and that sometimes even getting those, there's these markers that are scented markers.
Yep. Yep.
Sometimes using those markers can actually help kids regulate. And we tried it, and like we had kids that they would be coloring, and then they take up the marker and start
Mhm.
smelling it, and that just they would just kind of like feel good. So it's there's a lot of benefits to scents, even for kids and adults. And so I think that's really great that you also kind of specialize in that. And then you mentioned, as I kind of read through your bio, that in addition to being a life coach, you're also a spiritual counselor. Tell me a little bit more about this, what you mean when you say spiritual counselor.
Yeah, spiritual is not related to any religions, first and foremost. And a lot of people like to put the two together. They really actually are two separate things. You can be religious and not spiritual, and you can be spiritual and not religious, and you can be both.
Yeah.
And so spiritual really is like I said, I really consider, it's life coaching, it's healing, but I really consider what I do to be soul work.
Okay.
And that's the spiritual, really tapping into the heart of the person that I'm working with. And so it's, I do definitely have clients who embrace different religions or spiritual beliefs, and I, welcome all of that. There are definitely people who want to work through certain things spiritually or religious wise. I mean, there is a such thing as religious trauma.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who've been traumatized by the church and their religious upbringing. And so I certainly have clients who are dealing with those issues too. But really, it's really just working with like, who are you as a soul? Who are you? And
Mhm.
let's work from that space. Let me see that person. Let me get to that person and let me help to bring that out of you so that you can really manifest that in your everyday life. Because so many of us have had to become something other than who we are
Yeah.
to survive, to thrive, because we think that's what people expect of us, because that is our, particular identity, whatever it is. And so we don't know who we are anymore. We've lost that. And then we wonder why, we're depressed and we're not happy and we're not really fully living. And because you're not being authentic to yourself and you don't even know who yourself is because you haven't really taken the time to explore that. And so that's the spiritual part for me, like allowing you to truly get into you and embrace who you are. And then all of that other stuff comes up now, of course, your belief system, what's going to be your anchor. Are you going to embrace this particular religion or this particular practice or this particular ritual? All that can come from that space.
Mhm. Wow. So, for those of you that are just joining, you're listening to Black Mental Health Matters. I'm Dr. Carrie Ann Williams. I'm a psychiatrist here in Massachusetts. And my guest today is Avalaura, who is the owner and operator of Avalaura's Healing Center in Maryland. And today we're talking about her background and her business and also just general topics in mental health as well. So if you have a question, you can call in at 617-238-7111. That's 617-238-7111. We're also streaming live on Facebook, and the Facebook page is heat981fm.com. So thanks to those who have already joined by Facebook. Um, and I want to shift into talking a little bit about Black mental health. So, and you have clients from all over, right? So not just Black people in the U.S. You have Black people in other countries. Um, I wanted to, I guess, maybe start with Black women. What would you say are some of the common kind of perspectives or perceptions that Black women tend to have that can sometimes be a barrier to feeling fulfilled in their careers and their families? What some of the common threads that you see?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I do want to say, and because this has been a nice welcome change in my business. So I told you I officially opened in November of 2005. And when I first opened, even though I'm in the DC area, and it used to be Chocolate City, no more. But very high, Black, percentage of Black population in this area, which is one of the reasons why I love it and I stayed. I told you I'm originally from Connecticut, and I was like, my God, this is heaven. So I'm staying here. Um, but when I first opened my practice, the majority of my clients were white, and it was really interesting, some of the views around mental health, around holistic health and wellness and all those things. And I remember having, Black women in particular, and some men too, but really more Black women, wanting to embrace holistic health, but like, oh no, I can't do that, or oh, that's against my religion, or my pastor told me I can't practice yoga, that's going to open me up to spirits, or no, I can't do Reiki. Like, I don't know what that is touching me, or what are these spiritual guides and all this stuff. And so it was so fascinating to me, the views that we had, and how I was just like, this is ours. You know what I mean? Like, we call it holistic and we call it, sort of non traditional or alternative, but this is where we come from. Like, these are our roots. How do you think we made it through slavery? And what do you think was happening in Africa and everywhere? Like, this, we've always had traditional healers who healed using the elements of the earth, right, or spiritual knowledge. And so it was so fascinating to me, getting that response. And then now, coming to 2021, where the vast majority of my clients are now Black women. So it's been a complete shift. And it's so fascinating to me. And, a lot of it is, of course, like we talked about, our belief system, right? Because that is what plays the role. And I do a lot of teaching around mindset and growth mindset and our belief system and what our beliefs create in our life and what they manifest in our life. because it's one of the most powerful things that when you understand the control that you have by shifting your mind, that you really can control and shape your life. And so, one of the things that I see, in particular with Black women, and we talk about it all the time, is that we've gotten very used to kind of taking on the weight of the world. We've really just been trained. I mean, we talked about you don't have to be superwoman, but the reality is like we've been trained to be superwoman. So it's like we don't even see it as being superwoman because that's just what you do as a woman. That's what I've seen my mother do. That's what I've seen my grandmother do, my great grandmother do. And so I don't know how to just fall back and relax and like really practice self care because we don't do that in our family. Like, I got to make sure that the dishes are done. I got to make sure that the kids are good. I got to make sure that my husband is good. And then if there's some left over for me, okay, but otherwise, everybody else got to be good first. And that's the training, that's the programming. And so what I see is a lot of like really like deprogramming that we have to do, because that is essentially how we have lived and how we have functioned and how we have survived. It's like if you don't have that powerful Black woman holding you down, you're lost. Right? Like nobody else is gonna do it. And so there's been a lot of sacrifice. There's been a lot of sacrifice. And there's also been a lot of, I want to have all these things, but I don't feel like I can have them. Like, I don't, I really do want to have the career and the thriving business and the family and the amazing relationship, but I don't know if I can really at my core have it. And I don't know if I'm really worthy of it. I've never really seen that. I didn't see it in my parents' relationship. I didn't see it, in my grandparents or whoever. And so I'm not even sure if what I want exists. And so I'm kind of looking at this fairy tale image that really doesn't exist and trying to make it work, and it don't work. And so now I'm falling into the pitfalls of, being with the wrong men or woman, right? Because we don't know how to discern, because we're buying into these fairy tales that really don't exist. We don't know what like a real relationship looks like and a real healthy relationship.
Oh, wow. I guess, do you work with Black men as well? Do you tend to have Black men as clients?
I do. I would say most of the Black males that I work with kind of come through couples counseling.
Okay.
And then what happens is they're like, oh, this is good. Okay. Right. Like, I need this in my life. I do have some men, like I've had some like really amazing men for Reiki clients. And they've been with me like forever. And so I found that men kind of rather do energy healing. Like they feel like that's a more safe bet. But then when they trust me enough, they're like, okay, so tell me about the life coaching. What is that? So I kind of backdoor them. They kind of they kind of sneak in. But definitely more Black women, because women by nature are just more open. This is something that we'll look for, or our friends will tell us about, where men kind of have to come into an experience and then say, oh, this is valuable. This is worthwhile. Let me continue this.
Oh, wow. And so, I guess and this is more kind of like a general question, what do you wish that people knew about taking care of their mental health? Like just, particularly Black people, but just anyone, like, what do you wish that people knew about this is, about mental health in general, about taking care of themselves?
Yeah, I really and so I talk about my experience of getting fired and when I had to do my own healing work, right? And I when I look at it, I think that was like the first time in my life that I really did something so substantial. I did little things here and there, but I really kind of just sat down with myself and fully embraced what was going on in my life and what I wanted to shift and change. And while it was probably one of the more challenging parts of my life, it was also one of the most beautiful parts of my life, because it really was a gateway. I would not be who I am today if it was not for that experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so incredibly sure of that. And so what I wish that people knew is that healing work is not easy. It can absolutely be challenging. It is continuous. So you don't ever stop healing because you get to one level and then you want to get to the next and then the next and then the next. And if you're really on this journey of being the best possible person that you can be, you're always going to be in the process of healing. But if you decide that this is something that is important to you, that you're willing to do it, that you're going to invest your time and energy into it, it is absolutely one of the best decisions that you could ever make for yourself. Because the reality is life is hard.
Mhm.
It just is. As one of my clients say, life just be lifing. Like life
Life just be life.
life be lifing. Like life is not easy. Like there's always something, like you get to a place and you're like, I'm good, and it's something else just smacks you over the head and you got to deal with it. But when you work through your own mental health and healing, it makes life so much easier because now your perspective shifts and you're able to handle it, and you're able to say, okay, well, this happened, well, okay, let's figure out what we're going to do, versus, oh my god, I can't believe this is happening. And so it really just, it makes everything easier, it makes everything better, it makes everything more rewarding, and more fulfilling when you know that you've personally taken on this challenge to be the best person, and you see your growth and other people see your growth.
Yeah.
That happens a lot with my clients. They're like, oh my god, my husband noticed this, and my friends, like other people start to see it. You feel so good about yourself.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at some of the comments from Facebook. Facebook user Sandra says, "Yes, good stuff." Now, now in our kind of our last few minutes, I wanted to just ask a quick, I guess, to address one thing really quickly. You consulted on the Real Housewives of Potomac, and
Yeah.
you've got to tell us a little bit about what that was like.
It was amazing because I had no idea. I've always said I wanted to do more TV. And I thought maybe the news and some stuff, and I got thrust into reality TV. So that's what happens when you manifest, right? Like when you manifest, God is like, oh, okay. But it was a beautiful experience. Just being behind the scenes and seeing all that, and literally seeing how my 2 hour session got cut down to 2 minutes.
Of course.
Like it was a whole full 2 hours. And it's not easy. Like I have a new respect for reality TV. Just seeing all of the inner workings. You literally had, I'm trying to think, maybe 10 to 15 people who were there, from the producers and the camera people and lighting and the sound. And while I'm in the space, I worked with Karen and Ray, so it was a couples counseling session. And you got the producer over here, you got all the stuff over here. I'm having to listen to them and receive what they're taking in and give back, watching the producer and what they're saying over here, monitor all these things, what's going on in my own head. It's work. It's work. So that little 2 minutes that y'all saw, that was some work in there. Um, but it was a beautiful session. It was a beautiful session. I love when I can work with couples and they get to a place of harmony. And and I saw Ray like have a light bulb moment and realize some, just from my perspective and sharing, realize something that Karen had been sharing with him for years and he couldn't quite get it. And he finally realized it. And I mean, just seeing that light bulb moment go off and then seeing her like, oh, thank you. Like I've been saying this for years. He finally got it. So it was beautiful. I loved it.
Oh, that's so cool. So now, if folks that are listening, if they want to reach out to you, if they want to contact you or connect, even for a 3 month kind of a session, how can they reach you?
Yeah, I am easy to find. Avalaura, Avalaura. I am Googleicious. There's only one Avalaura. So literally, you type that in. You can go to avalaura.com. That is my hub. You can get on my mailing list. Connect with me on social media. I'm everywhere. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. So I'm very easy to find wherever you connect with me. I'm very approachable. A lot of times people are like, oh, I'm really approachable. People hit me up in my DMs all the time, maybe a little too much. So, um, Yeah, but I'm really easy to find. Connect with me. If you're interested in work with me, you can start with a consultation. Get on my calendar. We can talk, kind of see where you are in your journey, and what it is that you're looking for, and then I can kind of best direct you into, let's take this approach or let's try this. And so, yeah, I look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. And of course, there's a couple of podcasts as well that people can tune into.
All of that. And so those are all on my website as well. So yes, you can tune into my podcast. I forgot YouTube. You can tune into my YouTube. I have tons of videos. Even if you go to my Facebook, there's tons of videos. So I'm like I said, I'm Googleicious. I'm literally everywhere. So I am so easy to find.
Well, I thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was great hearing your insights and hearing about your work and your life. And I know our listening audience definitely appreciated that as well. Um, and for those listening, you've been listening to Black Mental Health Matters. If you want to tune in again next week, it'll be every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Heat 981 FM. So tune in again next week. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Carrie Ann, and I understand the importance of Black mental health. That's why I decided to start my own show on the Urban